I used to think mindfulness was something you reached if you tried hard enough. I followed the instructions carefully. Sit down, close your eyes, straighten your spine, bring attention to the breath. I did all of it, and still, within seconds, my legs itched, my back tightened, my thoughts scattered like startled birds. I remember sitting there, eyes closed, watching my own restlessness with a mix of shame and determination. Everyone said the same thing: just stay with it, just return to the breath. So I stayed, I returned, again and again. From the outside, it probably looked like discipline. From the inside, it felt like walking through a desert with a map that promised water somewhere ahead, as long as I didn't stop. Some days I believed the map. There were small successes, moments when the mind softened, a few quiet breaths that felt real. Those moments kept me going. They were like mirages that weren't entirely false. But they never lasted. The next day, the mind would rebel again, the body would refuse, and the silence I had tasted felt farther away than before. That was the hardest part. Not failing, but touching something true, then losing it. At a certain point, mindfulness stopped feeling like care and started feeling like management. Fix the posture, fix the breath, fix the wandering thought, fix myself. I didn't quit, I kept practicing, but somewhere along the way, the practice turned into pursuit, and pursuit, even of peace, is exhausting. Looking back now, I see someone sincerely trying to do the right thing. Not lazy, not careless, just human. Walking across a wide inner landscape, trusting that stillness was an oasis meant for everyone. I didn't know it then, but I wasn't lost. I was just following a path that didn't fit the shape of my own steps. It was around that time that I started looking more closely at Wukong. Not the statue, not the symbol people polish and place on altars, but the character himself. Have you noticed how rarely he sits still? He leaps, he fights, he argues with heaven. He moves as if motion is the only way his mind knows how to breathe. And yet, somehow, this restless, impulsive, uncontrollable figure walks all the way to the west and becomes a Buddha. That used to confuse me. If awakening comes from silence, Wukong should have failed early. He should have been disqualified the moment he couldn't stay put. But the story doesn't go that way. Watching him, I began to wonder if some minds don't arrive at presence by stopping, but by entering fully. I started noticing moments in my own life where the noise went quiet without effort. Not on a cushion, not with my eyes closed, while walking for no reason at all, while working with my hands, while absorbed in something simple and repetitive that didn't demand commentary. Time moved differently in those moments. Thoughts still appeared, but they stopped asking for attention. Later, I learned that science had a name for this: flow. A state where the mind stops circling itself, not because it's been forced into silence, but because attention finally has somewhere honest to go. Both stillness and flow quiet the same inner machinery. The part of the mind that keeps asking, "How am I doing? Am I getting this right?" The difference is the doorway. Stillness asks you to step back. Flow asks you to step in. For someone like Wukong, a cage only makes the struggle louder. But give him a staff to spin, a mountain to climb, a task worthy of his energy, and he becomes precise, focused, present. For the first time, I considered the possibility that my restlessness wasn't a flaw. It was information, and I had been trying to solve it by doing the opposite of what it was asking for. For a while, this felt like relief. I stopped judging myself for not sitting well. I walked more. I worked more with my hands. I let movement carry the attention instead of forcing it to stand still. And it worked. There were stretches of genuine quiet, not the fragile kind that shatters when you blink, but a steady, functional calm. The mind stayed with the task. The body felt useful again. I remember thinking, so this is it. This is my way. From the outside, it looked like progress. From the inside, it felt like finally breathing after holding it for too long. But something subtle crept in. I began to notice how uneasy I felt when there was nothing to do. No movement to enter, no task to absorb me. The silence I once chased on the cushion returned in a different shape. An open space with no instructions. And this time, it scared me more. I saw it clearly then. Before, I was chasing stillness. Now, I was chasing flow. Different form, same thirst. Movement had become another strategy, a refined one, less obvious, more socially acceptable. As long as I stayed engaged, I felt okay. But the moment life paused, the old restlessness rushed back in, twice as loud. Flow hadn't freed me. It had given me a beautiful place to hide. Standing back, I could see the pattern. A traveler crossing the desert, switching from one map to another, both promising water just ahead. Stillness wasn't the problem. Movement wasn't the solution. Both were tools. And I was still trying to use them to escape uncertainty. Wukong in the stories doesn't avoid hardship. He walks straight through it, across mountains, across deserts, across stretches where no trick works. That was the part I had missed. The journey never promised comfort, only honesty. And I hadn't learned yet how to stay when neither effort nor engagement could save me. There came a point when neither approach helped. Sitting felt forced. Movement felt like avoidance. I remember one night in particular. Nothing dramatic had happened. No crisis, no collapse. Just the quiet accumulation of ordinary effort. Small decisions, polite restraint. Trying to be reasonable all day long. By the time I lay down, my body was heavy and my mind refused to settle. Out of habit, I tried to practice. I watched the breath. I adjusted my posture. I corrected the wandering. And something inside tightened. Not anxiety, not thought. Trying. It felt like asking tired legs to walk properly. Like telling sore hands to hold gently. So I stopped. Not as a technique, not as insight. I simply stopped interfering. I lay there, eyes open, letting the mind do what it was already doing. Planning, replaying, complaining. For the first time that night, I wasn't managing any of it. What surprised me wasn't the noise. I was used to that. It was the discomfort of not fixing. A strange uneasiness, like standing in an empty room without knowing where to sit. The urge to do something rose immediately. Breathe deeper. Reframe the thought. Turn the moment into progress. That urge felt responsible, almost wise. But watching it closely, I saw something simpler underneath, a refusal to be with uncertainty. When effort dropped away, there was no peace waiting. There was openness, and openness had no instructions. This is the place most paths don't describe, where tools fall quiet, where success can't be repeated, where failure has no clear shape. I stayed there longer than I wanted to. Thoughts came and went, some sharp, some old, some pointless. I didn't chase meaning. I didn't look for resolution. And slowly, without my help, something in the body softened. The jaw released. The breath found its own pace. The shoulders lowered. Not all the way, but enough. I hadn't relaxed. I had stopped bracing. That difference mattered more than any technique I'd learned. Nothing remarkable happened after that night. The morning still arrived. Messages still needed answers. Responsibilities didn't dissolve. There was no breakthrough to protect, no state to maintain. But something quiet had shifted. I became more sensitive to the moment effort turns into pressure. Not all effort, just the unnecessary kind. I began noticing it in ordinary places. At a red light, jaw clenched for no reason. Reading an email twice, already preparing a defense for a conflict that hadn't happened. Before, those moments triggered correction. Fix the breath, fix the posture, fix the mind. Now, sometimes, they triggered a pause. Not a method, not a practice, a brief stopping of interference. I don't tell the mind to settle. I don't tell the body to soften. I stop adding weight. Some days I sit. Some days I move. Some days neither works. The difference now is that I'm no longer trying to force a map onto terrain that keeps changing. This is how Wukong makes sense to me now. Not as discipline, not as control, as discernment. Early on, he responds to everything. Every challenge becomes a fight. Every movement demands action. Later, something shifts. Some thoughts don't need replies. Some discomfort doesn't need fixing. Some battles aren't battles at all. Putting the staff down isn't giving up. It's knowing when holding it is doing more harm than good. Wukong crosses deserts not because he enjoys suffering, but because there is no other way through. The sand doesn't disappear because you learned a lesson. You walk anyway. And if you're walking through something dry right now, unsure whether you're doing it right, this might be enough. Not to reach the end, not to become better, just to be here, as you are, without pretending you've arrived. That is not perfection, but it is honest. And honesty, it turns out, is sometimes the only water in the desert. Namo Buddhaya.